So I'm back. The Lord has another word. I just put a word out titled, "The Lord is testing and judging those who have or have not a servant's heart." That was from earlier, and then the Lord just gave me this extension, this extended version, and this branch off of this word now. And what he was saying to me, because it's kind of a spin-off of that last one, is he's saying another thing is that there's religious spirits, right, similar to the Pharisees in the Bible, that feel like as if they're the judge and jury and knower of God and how he moves and what that looks like and things like that. But yet these people are following a false doctrination themselves and judging those who the Lord has deemed worthy as judging them poorly. And then likewise, those that the Lord has deemed unfit, like they're unrighteous, they're wicked, they have judged them as worthy. Okay? So the Lord is saying is that the Pharisees and the religious spirits in the Bible, for instance, they were against Jesus, right? But then others who may be, like say tax collectors, for instance, they may have been just fine, but yet they were greedy in their ways. And then Jesus, who is an actual healer, they judged him, right? So they had it backwards. But they judged this because they thought that they knew God and the way God would move and operate more than anyone. They felt they were superior, that they had a superior opinion, right? But the Lord is saying that at the end of the day, they were wrong, right? They were wrong. And that their mindset and their viewpoints were foolish and backwards, okay? So that same message pertains to today. The Lord is saying that there's people around you, right, that some of them have religious spirits. And therefore, especially if they're older, so if they feel like they came to Christ and to know God before you, they use that to feel superior over you. Like, oh, well, you've only been with the faith for 2 years. I've been with the faith for 5 years. So therefore, I'm the better judge and jury of how God is and how God would move. But God's telling me that his spirit can come on just as strong or stronger on a new believer than it can on someone who's been following him for years, right? Because the Lord's ways are not our ways. So the way that he judges and determines our status and our standing with him and where our hearts are with him are not how man would judge. For instance, Jesus was the Lord's son. You know it and I know it, but the Pharisees didn't think he was. They thought he was false. He was a hoax. He was actually receiving, he worked with demons, right? They thought that Jesus was like a false prophet and that he wasn't who he said he was, right? But you and I know he was, but the only reason we know he was because of him dying on the cross for us and resurrecting. Before Jesus went to the cross and died on the cross and was resurrected, before that happened, Jesus was showing them over and over again through his dedication to the Father. And they didn't care about that because they felt they were dedicated to the Father. Even though they weren't, as you and I know from reading the Bible, they weren't dedicated to the Father in the way that his son was. So technically his son walked closer with the Lord than they did. But from their human point of view, they felt that Jesus was not only did he not walk with the Lord like he said he did, but that he wasn't his son, and that everything that he was saying and doing, his miracles were representations of demons. His, everything, all the viewpoints they had, these religious spirits and Pharisees had on Jesus was backwards and wrong. They were just straight out, flat out wrong. But then, and Jesus knew that. That's why his dying words on the cross were, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do," because Jesus understood, because of having the heart of Christ, that these people, they're backwards, because they're mere mortal. They lack the wisdom and understanding, right? So then once Jesus perished on the cross and resurrected, then it became clear and plain. Oh, he was who he said he was, right? And so the Lord is saying is that there's people around you too that have these religious Pharisee type spirits where they think that because they're older than you, they are wiser than you, or they're more superior than you, or if they're not older than you, or maybe only older than you by a few months or a couple years, so age isn't their reasoning, they feel that it's that they're more experienced than you. They've been at this longer than you have, so therefore they have superiority. It's the same thing with the Pharisees. They thought because they were older, Jesus was 30, they were 60, they must know more of what they're talking about, right? Because Jesus was just a humble, servant of the Lord, and they had these appointed and elect positions. They felt that they had an air of superiority over Jesus there too, right? And the Lord is saying is that there's people around you as well, people close to you and people at a distance from you, and they're around all of us, where they have these religious Pharisee spirits, and they know that you're to be a self-proclaimed, self-confessed believer like Jesus was. But just like how the Pharisees were with Jesus, they're dismissing what you're saying. They don't believe that you are who you say you are. They don't believe that you have this relationship with God. They don't believe that you walk as closely with him as you actually do. And it took a drastic event for them to see and understand that Jesus was who he said he was all along, right? And the same thing with you is that the Lord is creating events, and in some cases dramatic and drastic, because that's what it requires to shake these people up, because they're so rigid and stubborn and stuck in their ways that they don't understand, for them to see that you really are who you say you are, okay? Now, God's telling me, because this is the branch off of the last word, so you might want to check out the word I posted just before this one, that another reason why they judge this way towards you is because this religious spirit is making them think things about God that aren't necessarily correct. They think that it goes 1, 3, 5, 7 when it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're missing a couple key pieces in there, right, in the sequence. So they don't have as they say, a few bricks short of a load. They're a few bricks short of a load here. They're missing the fundamentals. So what do I mean? I mean that, okay, so going back to the word I put out before this one, talking about the woman with the issue of blood. She obviously had faith in Jesus because she sought him out for her healing. Even though she tried other avenues, she still knew, and it even says in the Bible, goes so far as to say that she says she knew if she could just touch the hem of his garment, she would be saved. That's how strong her faith was. She touched his garment, but he was in a crowd, and due to her faith, the Lord realized that somebody of faith touched him. Because had it have been somebody that didn't believe in him, and to the degree, or suffered in the way she did, wasn't in a vulnerable position like she was, he would have sensed it, but he probably would have, because Jesus knows everything, he would have known where they were and where she was, and maybe it wouldn't have been so significant. But because she was desperate, and she had sought all other remedies and they didn't pan out for her, she knew that there was only one key solution for her here, one cure, and that was the Lord Jesus Christ. So the fact that she sought him out in the first place made her a believer. So yes, she was experiencing an issue of blood, a blood disorder, but she still sought out Jesus Christ. Meaning that even though there was something that was an ailment, even though she had an ailment, and was dismissed and demeaned by the rest of society as like, oh, she just has a blood disorder, and she was neglected and rejected and demeaned, because of her issue of blood, it didn't stop her or thwart her from having a faith in Jesus Christ and seeking him out, right? So then she sought out the Lord, and she went so far as it doesn't say in the Bible that she says to herself, well, maybe I'll get lucky today. We'll see how it goes. She said strongly, if I just touch the hem of his garment, that will be enough. Meaning that she had so much faith in Lord Jesus' healing abilities that it wouldn't even take his full capacity. He wouldn't even need to look at her. He wouldn't even need to lay hands on her. He wouldn't even need to speak to her. He wouldn't even need to address her at all. She would just have to touch the hem. That's how anointed he was. That's how healing he was, right? So again, it shows that she has a strong faith and she walks closely with the Lord Jesus and closely with God, right? So she probably sought out God and said, God, what do I do here? I've done everything for this blood disorder and to no avail. And God probably said, well, go seek out my son, Jesus Christ. Because of the fact that she was a true believer in God and didn't have this religious spirit, God was able to direct her as to, hey, this is the cure. This is what you need, right? It's just like with anyone else. When you've exhausted all options and efforts, Jesus sometimes creates scenarios like that so that you turn to him, or God will so that you turn to his son, right? Because Jesus healed that woman with the issue of blood, and he'll heal your issue too, whatever it may be, physical, financial, emotional, mental, etc., right? So the Lord, or God, probably encouraged her to go seek out his son Jesus, because even though these Pharisees didn't think that Jesus was God's son, God knew that Jesus was his son, and Jesus knew he was God's son. And therefore, because of this connection that was there, irregardless of religious spirits or not, the God sent people towards the Lord for healing. Now, does it say in the Bible that God sent Pharisees? God sent the officials, the elect ones, the appointed ones, the elite ones? No, it doesn't talk about that. It talks about Jesus healing people with demons, healing people who are blind, healing people who are paralyzed, healing people with leprosy, healing people that have died, right? So therefore, meaning that Jesus's ministry wasn't based and catered around the upper echelon, around the officials, the elect. His ministry was catered and based on those who were in low grade positions. They were, down on their luck, so to speak. They were vulnerable. They were needy. They were sick. They needed help. And the rest of society, like I explained in the last word, neglected and rejected and dismissed and demeaned them. So therefore, how do these religious spirits think that they know your position with God and with Jesus Christ? When the Lord, it says in the Bible that the Lord went to go and heal and help and assist those who are in a lesser position. They're lesser off, right? Many times over. That's who the Lord Jesus specialized with. Not with the rich, not with the elite, not with the snobs and the ones that thought they were better than and that were judging. He catered to those that understood how they weren't judgmental. They had soft hearts and good hearts because they understood how it felt to feel like you're at the bottom of the ladder, right? So I say this to say, because if this is the message that the Lord was telling me, is that there's been times in my life that I've been really down on my luck, right? And people around me knew that because I either told them or they overheard something or they witnessed something or something like that. Some of these people don't even follow the Lord at all. They actually have wicked, evil hearts, and therefore they were, in some cases, part of the problem. They're actually catalysts to the problems that I was experiencing, meaning that they were the problem creators, not solvers. They were the problem starters, right? But that I also had other people around me that claimed to be close with the Lord, close with God, close with Jesus. But yet the Lord is telling me that those people had religious spirits on them, just like the Pharisees did. And that just like how the Pharisees judged Jesus incorrectly, these people around me and you, if this resonates for you too, have judged us incorrectly too, and have went and talked. So the Pharisees went and talked amongst themselves and said, oh, he can't be the Son of God. He can't be the, who he says he is. He has to be false because no human can do these things. Well, he says he gets this ability through the power of God. Well, no, because God's never done this with, I've never had this power, and so has never had it. And we're the upper elite echelon. If we don't have it, why would he have it? And here's us who've been with the Lord. I'm in my 40s. I'm in my 60s. I'm in my 70s. I've been walking with the Lord for 50 years. He's only in his 30s. How could it be him and not me, right? Like, let's think about this here. Like that's how the Lord is showing me that, like, layman's terms, that's how modern day version, that's how the conversation was going, right? In and amongst themselves. Gossiping and spreading this message around that because someone didn't believe, now someone else doesn't believe, and then they're trying to make some more people not believe, so that it comes back to where they're judging. So Jesus was the Son of God. You know it and I know it. But at the time when he was alive and doing his ministry, they were talking in amongst themselves, judging him as something that he wasn't, saying he worked with demons and the devil when he didn't, saying that he wasn't who he claimed to be. He was bearing false witness, which he was who he claimed to be. So then they were trying to say, if anything, he's actually sinning against God because he's trying to say he's something that he's not, and that he must be crazy because only a crazy person makes these kind of, weird assumptions, far out assumptions about things, of who they are and things like that. Grandiose assumptions. And we know now, you and I both know, that the Pharisees were wrong, not Jesus. God was right. Jesus was right. It was what it was there. Jesus was not guilty of any sins. He was saying the truth. It's just that the Pharisees had these religious spirits upon them that made them underestimate and accuse Jesus of things that weren't true and underestimate who he really was and his situation. And God's also saying that it's also that they judge this off of external things too. They saw how Jesus dressed compared to themselves. They saw how Jesus was humble compared to themselves. And so the Lord is saying there's still that Pharisee religious mind spirit thinking in today's world, just like there was back then, where people think that you must dress a certain way to actually walk with the Lord. You must address yourself and address others in a certain way to walk with the Lord. That like to be a true blue pastor of the Lord, you must dress in a suit and tie. No. To be a true blue, bona fide, genuine prophet of the Lord, you must, look the part and whatever these Pharisee / religious spirits have drummed up in their mind. No. In order to be a true bona fide follower of Lord Jesus Christ, your life must be crystal clear, perfect. Everything must be perfect. You can't have any struggles. You can't get sick. No. You can't suffer financially. No. You can't have difficult days. No. It brings me full circle back to the characters that the Lord highlighted to me in my last message I put out. The Lord highlighted to me in that last message. So basically how he's trying to say it to me is he's saying to me, like, Amanda, the blind man couldn't see. There were people around him that could see, that believed in me, and so did the blind man. But I didn't heal the people that could see. Why? Because they didn't need healing. I healed the person that was blind. Right? And the people, there was people around that blind man that were trying to suggest he didn't need the healing, or that he must not be as close to me as he was, or he must not be a strong believer, or he must be running with the devil or holding hands with Satan for him to be blind in the first place. And so the Lord is saying that maybe that man in the Bible had physical blindness, but the people around him had spiritual blindness. And there's no difference in the Lord's eyes. There's physical sickness, but there's also spiritual sickness. So the Lord is saying, like, say if you were, heaven forbid, but if you were to get sick with something, just say, for example, like a cancer or something. You believe in the Lord. You're real true. You actually believe in Jesus and God. You have a close relationship with Jesus and God. Period. God knows you, right? But that there's people around you that think that you're not who you say you are, and that if you get sick, that must mean that you must have done something bad. You must be following Satan. You must be not saying who you say you are. Just like how these people judged Jesus, but they also were judging the people that Jesus healed. That blind man doesn't need help. That woman with the issue of blood doesn't need help. Just like slough her off to the side like we do, right? Because they had these religious spirits. So they had these high expectations for Jesus that were wrong. They had these high expectations for the people that Jesus wanted to heal in his ministry that were wrong. But then they also put these high expectations on themselves, which were also wrong. So God is saying that these people with these religious spirits back in biblical days when Jesus had a ministry, and all the way into 2024 today as I'm recording this message, they're wrong. They were wrong then, they're wrong today, and they'll be wrong, next year. They're wrong. I can't make it more clear. They thought Jesus was something he wasn't. They were wrong. They think you're something that you're not. They're wrong. They think that just because you go through a hard patch or a hard time or something difficult, that you must not be a follower of God. They have this thinking that followers of God have everything just perfect. So say, for instance, that they say that people close to you, say these are family members, just say for example's sake. Say there's family members around you that are self-proclaimed Christians and followers of Jesus and God, okay? Maybe they are older than you and or they've been followers of Jesus and God for many more years than you have. Because you're what they would call is like a new believer, not brand new, but newer believer. Maybe they've been at it for 10, 15, 20 years and you've been at it for 2 or 3. Because of that, they automatically think, even if it doesn't matter if your life is perfect or not perfect, they think that they have the superiority over you just off the fact alone that they've walked with the Lord longer than you have, and or that they're older than you. Say it's a parent, say it's a grandparent, great aunt, great uncle, etc., right? So therefore, you must not be who you say that you are, just like how they viewed Jesus, because they were in these appointed upper echelon positions that they were in their seniority on, and then Jesus was younger. But they were wrong, as we know. Then to boot, on top of it, if you happen to go through any hardship after being a self-proclaimed believer, just like Jesus proclaimed, I'm the Son of God, you're saying, I'm a believer of Jesus and I'm a follower of God. They didn't believe Jesus and they don't believe you. So then when you come along and you have a hardship, so say things are going okay and then you lose your job, oh, you must not walk with Jesus. You must not be a true believer in God, because those who walk with Jesus and believe in God, they don't lose their jobs. That's not true. Just like back in the biblical days, oh, those who walk with Jesus and believe in God don't have blood disorders. But yet God is saying that that one with the blood disorder had more faith than 98% of the people that were in that crowd with her, because she actually sought out the Lord and knew if she could just touch his garment. So there was people in that crowd that wanted to have a full-on, full-body experience with Jesus. This woman, and they were perfectly fine. This woman with the blood disorder just wanted to touch his garment and knew that would be enough. So if we're comparing apples to oranges here, who technically had stronger faith? It was actually the woman with the ailment and the sickness that was deemed and looked down upon as, why are you here? Clearly you don't walk with the Lord or care for Jesus or God, because if you were, you wouldn't be sick in the first place. But if everyone was so perfect and no one had sicknesses and hard moments and hard times, then who would Jesus have healed? Right? It doesn't say in the Bible that Jesus went and healed everybody's sight that could see. Where's the healing in that? If everyone in the Bible can see and Jesus is healing their sight, where's the miracle? Where's the healing miracle? Jesus wanted to show his miracle ways by healing somebody who was blind. Because somebody who's blind, it's much more of a miracle to take a blind person and make them see than take a sightful person and make them see, right? Obviously. So if everything was peachy keen perfect in your life, where's the miracle? If you already are at a top-notch level, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, how, when Jesus comes into your life, is he supposed to perform a miracle there? God is actually saying these people are so backwards that the very thing that they're trying to suggest is the actual thing that's going on. So they don't understand that. They think that if you go through something difficult, whether it be a physical ailment, a mental ailment, a financial ailment, whatever it may be, they think that if you're going through something, that boom, there you go, that proves it, told you that they don't walk with Jesus, that they're not of the Lord, because if they were, these things wouldn't be happening to them. But but the Lord is saying they don't understand that they're just as sick as you are. So if you're going through a physical sickness and they think that that's proof and manifest that you're not of God, the Lord is saying, why are they judging? For one, they're wrong. And for two, they're sick on the inside. Maybe they're sick in the mind. They're sick in the heart. They're sick too. Maybe they don't have cancer or diabetes or, whatever it may be, but they have sickness. They're spiritually sick inside. So maybe you have a physical sickness that they can judge and talk about and gossip about and etc. But first of all, their judgment of you trying to say, oh, there you go, that's the proof in the pudding that they don't walk close with the Lord. Not only is their assumption and judgment on you wrong, just like the Pharisees were wrong about Jesus, but they're also a hypocrite in the Lord's eyes, because while they're sitting there trying to whisper and say that your physical sickness is proof that you aren't who you say you are, while they're doing this, they're completely full to the brim with spiritual sickness inside. And the difference between them and you is that you have enough faith in Jesus to go to him and stay close to him and proclaim yourself as a believer, despite the fact that you have this physical ailment. They claim to be a believer like you do, but yet they're full of this spiritual sickness and they're not going to Jesus for the help. Right? So I hope you're following me here. Like, God is saying, he's talking about back in Jesus's ministry, his biblical days, but also talking about modern day today as well. And saying that there's a likeness there where throughout Jesus's ministry, he was healing many people, but some of the standout people he healed were like the man with the demons, the paralyzed man, the blind man, and the woman with the issue of blood. And of course, there's many more, but I'm just using those top 4 because those are the ones that God pointed out to me earlier in the last message. And like I said, this message is a branch off of that last message. It goes a step further because this is that's the revelation the Lord gave me earlier this morning. This is the revelation he gave me just before I started to put out this word. So he's really trying to say something here with these messages. The messages are different, but they're similar. So yeah, so anyways, so with that said, those are the people that Jesus healed, okay? I'm saying a few things here. One, if Jesus went around healing people that weren't sick, if they were in tip-top mental, emotional, physical positions, then where's the healing miracle? Jesus works best when he's given room to perform a miracle. And if things are already in good shape, good standing, the miracle that Jesus does isn't going to have the impact it will if things are in a worse position, like in a not good position, right? And the Lord is saying that in the 4 people I described, the man with the issue of demons, you could see these demons on the outside, manifesting on the outside. But the Lord is saying that those Pharisees and religious spirits that judged in the Bible, they were full of these demons inside. And the people that are judging you today and those around you that walk with the Lord and say that, oh, you must not be who you say you are, they're also full of demons inside. So maybe people can see the demons on that man on the outside, but they just can't see the demons, but there's just as many demons on these people on the inside. That man that was blind, yes, maybe he couldn't physically see. He was walking around, grabbing things because he couldn't see physically, so you could tell, anyone on the outside could tell he was blind. But the Lord is saying these people are in no position to judge because they themselves are blind as well, just as blind, if not more so, spiritually. But the man with the blindness wasn't spiritually blind because he sought out Jesus for healing for his sight. So what's the difference? We have a blind man who's not spiritually blind inside. He's just blind on the outside physically, and Jesus can heal those blind eyes. Now he can see inside and outside. But then on the flip side, we have these religious spirits walking around that are judging people that are physically blind because they can physically see that with their eyes, because luckily they're blessed with sight. But they're just as blind, if not more, spiritually on the inside. So out of the 2 scenarios, scenario 1 gets full healing. They were blind on the outside but could see inside. Now they can see on the inside, and now that Jesus has healed them, now they can see on the outside. Now they have 20/20 vision outside and 20/20 vision inside. That's a miracle, right? But then the person that's judging them with this religious spirit, they maybe were blessed with the sight to see on the outside physically, so they're not getting judged by others, but they're completely full of spiritual blindness inside that nobody can see, including them. So therefore, they're not seeking Jesus out because they don't realize they're spiritually blind inside, and they know they have the sense of sight. So out of the 2 people, person A and person B, the only person that experiences Jesus' true healing is person A. So therefore, the person that technically walks with the Lord is the very person that the religious spirit said didn't walk with the Lord. Because if that person didn't walk with the Lord, why would they have sought out the Lord for healing, for one, and for two, received it? Just like going back to the one with the issue of blood. Jesus told the one with the issue of blood, your faith has healed you. If her faith was irrelevant and her faith wasn't accurate and she was making it up and she wasn't a true faithful woman, then why did the Bible quote Jesus as saying that to her in the first place? Jesus wouldn't have said anything. He said, go woman, your faith has healed you. That's pointed out specifically. Why? Because it wanted to be contrasted to show you and me that, just even the faith to touch his garment is enough. And clearly this woman had faith in Jesus despite what others may have judged upon her, because if she didn't have faith in Jesus, why was she seeking him out in the first place? And second of all, why did Jesus feel her touch his garment, turn around and heal her and say the words, your faith has healed you? So obviously, whether people believe she was of God or not is irrelevant. God recognized her as one of his. And that's all that matters. Because if she wasn't, then why did God send her to his son in the first place? And why did God's son Jesus offer her the healing she wanted and say, your faith has healed you? So obviously she had faith in Jesus to begin with. And the fact that Jesus healed her, he knew was just going to increase her faith all the more. And not just that, but increase the faith of those around her. So who knows? The Bible doesn't say. But maybe that woman with the issue of blood was going around to family members for the 12 years before she encountered Jesus and saying, man, I wish you could really help me. I'm having a hard time. I have this issue of blood. And maybe the people were saying to themselves behind her back and gossiping and saying, I don't think she walks with God. I don't think she's of Jesus or believes in Jesus and is of God, because if she were, why does she have this bleeding disorder for 12 years? She must be shaking hands and dancing with the devil and dancing with demons. She must be infested with demons, because why else has she tried all these different things? And 12 years later, she still has this issue. Gossip, lie, judge, etc., etc. And then this woman ends up getting told to go seek out Jesus Christ by God, because she's a true believer despite what they think. She does so. Her faith is so strong, despite what these people judged her on, that she just wants to touch the garment. She touches the garment and receives the healing. So then when this occurs, not only does it bolster her faith, but it bolsters those around her, because then she can go back to those family members and say, they'll be like, oh, so what happened? And then she'll say, oh, my blood disorder, I've been healed. Oh, how? Well, Jesus Christ healed me. I went and saw him and he healed me. Oh, so now they got to go and say, okay, well, maybe she did have faith in Jesus because she sought him out. And maybe Jesus does recognize her because, God healed her and Jesus was able to heal her back, and she tried all these other things. And so not only did that act bolster the woman with the issue of blood's faith in Jesus even stronger than it already was, but it also was effective because it bolstered the faith of those around her that had been judging her prior to, thinking that she must be of the devil or not be who she says she is. Her faith must not be strong enough, etc., etc. And I could go on and on. The same with the paralyzed man, paralyzed man, they see the paralyzed man. Oh, he's full of demons. He's obviously not of God. He must not be one of God's. He's not who he says he is. He doesn't have faith. He's not the real deal, because why is he paralyzed? But yet these people that are saying this are spiritually paralyzed inside. Maybe not physically. Maybe they can walk around. Lucky them. They're blessed. But they're spiritually paralyzed. They're paralyzed and stuck in the things that they're doing. They're stuck in their sin cycle, say. So therefore, they're also paralyzed. They're not free to roam and do what they want because the devil's got them in a chokehold. Maybe they don't realize that because that's not an external ailment, it's an internal ailment. The paralyzed man, aware that he has an ailment, pursues the Lord through faith because he's consistent with it. The Lord recognizes his faith, heals him, and now, same thing as the one with the issue of blood, that man has been healed now. Not only can he walk, but his faith in the Lord has tripled more than it was to begin with, because he knew the Lord could heal him, and the Lord proved to him he could heal him. But how did the Lord prove he could heal him? Because the Lord was who he said he was. The Lord tried to tell the Pharisees that he's a miraculous healer sent by God. They didn't believe him. But when he's sitting there healing people of paralyzation and blindness and blood disorders, it's pretty clear that he is who he says he is. But again, these religious and Pharisee spirits are stubborn and they don't understand. So therefore they just assume that that's being done because they can't thwart what their eyes are seeing. So then they say, well, that must be through the power of demons. And so God is saying that that is what these people are doing with you and with me and with others, is that you and me and others are true believers, true children of God. We're truly chosen. We truly have faith in the Lord. We walk with the Lord, everything. But they don't believe you because they have these religious spirits on them. It's nothing to do with you. You could be in tip-top shape, they won't believe you. You could be in down and out shape, they won't believe you. So it really doesn't matter, because the problem is with them, because they're spiritually blind. They're spiritually paralyzed. They have spiritual demons. They're the ones that are under the affliction, not you. And then the second that something, you encounter a hardship, a difficulty, so like a spiritual paralysis or a spiritual blindness, you fall into, you trip and stumble and fall into a bramble, so to speak. Well, that's all it is. And I explained already in the last message why the Lord allows that to happen sometimes to his believers isn't because he's hurting you. It's because he's testing those around you. And so when he performs this testing for judgment and the people around you exercise their religious spirits, just like how the Pharisees did in the Bible against Jesus, then they fail their tests. And it's even worse if they don't help you or assist you, or if they go and gossip about you and make stories up about you and lie about you. And then ultimately all that ends up happening is the Lord picks you back up. He heals whatever your paralysis and blindness was at the moment. You were a faithful believer before that, and you're an even more faithful believer after that, because here he came again and healed you yet again, like he always has before. The people around you witness this healing, and Jesus and God get the glory like they deserve, and then the judgment falls on these religious spirits around you that claim to walk closer with God and Jesus than you do. But yet they just witnessed you falling down and getting hurt, and the Lord picking you up and healing you, and they've witnessed this many times, and they still don't believe that you walk with the Lord like you say you do, and that you must be with demons. But therefore, if they say that you must be with demons, then that's once again saying that the Lord must be with demons, because when you're getting healed up, then that suggests that the Lord is willing to heal somebody with demons and then let them just go back to their demons. And then, you know what I'm saying? So not only are they, I don't know what the word to be, but, going against you, and what you say, so to speak, but they're also ultimately going against God as well. And the very person and source and spirit that they say that they follow, right? So they say they follow Jesus, they say they follow the Holy Spirit, but yet if they follow Jesus and the Holy Spirit, then why would they doubt Jesus' healing powers? Just like the Pharisees in the biblical days, they claimed to know God, and they apparently seemed to say they knew God better than Jesus did, even though Jesus was God's son. But yet, when they happened to witness Jesus performing miracles that no one had done, but because they couldn't give credit where credit was due to the people Jesus healed and also to Jesus as the healer, they had to turn around and assume that it must be the devil's work. But in reality, the people that were doing the devil's work were the people that were suggesting that other people were doing the devil's work. Because just the fact that you're trying to dismiss the person that claims to be of God, and also in turn dismiss the healer that heals them, then that means that you're suggesting that it wasn't God, it was something else, some other entity entirely, which would mean the devil, which means that technically if you're saying you're a believer, then you must be believing in the devil. Do you understand? It's very straightforward. And see, the reason why I may be blind or paralyzed in some people's opinions if they're seeing me from the outside, right? They're judging circumstances. So to them, my circumstances, whatever they have judged, may seem to be paralyzation and blindness. But in reality, if I was so paralyzed and blind, then why am I able to hear from God and Jesus about things like this? And to understand, those who have ears to hear will hear, and those who have eyes to see will see. I have spiritual sight. So even if I'm experiencing a blindness, a physical blindness, I have spiritual sight. So I can still see things for what they are. These people are backwards. They're the ones with the spiritual blindness. So they can't see things for how they are. So I'd rather be in my position than theirs. And even if I'm experiencing a sort of paralysis, I'm not paralyzed spiritually. These people are. So just remember this, is that those who judged Jesus in the Bible, they had religious spirits. Yeah, maybe they believed in God, but they felt that that gave them some sort of, I don't know what the word would be like, but just like some ability, some higher appointed, judgment of sorts to be able to dictate and determine, who's of God, who's not, who's the real deal, who's not, what this means, what that means. But yet the Lord is confirming to me that these very people back in the Bible and nowadays, doesn't matter, there's nothing new under the sun, they're the ones that are suffering with an ailment. So while they're judging the woman with the blood disorder, they have a disorder themselves. And while they're judging the man with the blindness and the man with the paralyzation, they too are blind and paralyzed. So they're in no position to judge at all. And not only that, you are who you say you are. Just like Jesus was who he said he was. And unfortunately, it took drastic and dire circumstances for people to understand that. But of course, the Lord is saying that even after those dire and drastic circumstances, some people still didn't understand that. Because not everybody has the spiritual ears to hear and the spiritual eyes to see. But obviously, the woman with the blood disorder had the spiritual eyes and the spiritual ears to hear and see. And so did the paralyzed man, and so did the blind man, right? And so did basically everyone that had faith to find Jesus and follow him, and therefore receive healing. So anyways, back to what I was trying to say there. The Lord is basically just saying that you are a true child of God. You are a true chosen one. You are who you say you are. And just because these people around you, it doesn't matter the circumstances, if they've walked with the Lord longer, if they're older than you, if they have more money than you, if they have a better job than you, if they're married and you're not, if they, they're healthy and you're not, whatever it may be. They're literally comparing things that aren't they're just not worthy to be compared. But God has looked into the situation, and God is the judge, and God has determined who's what. And even though you may not have the marriage and the career and the money and the status and the that and this, if you're truly walking with God and you don't have a religious spirit on you, and you are truly a chosen one, and you walk closely with Jesus and have your faith with you, then that's all that you need. You don't have to worry about anything else. And Jesus will continue to heal you just like how he healed those that sought him in the biblical days. And unfortunately for these people, they're not receiving any healing because they don't think that they have anything wrong with them in the first place. And that's the first step. And that, just to say one more time, just because you maybe go through a moment of testing or trial or hardship, nobody's life is perfect. And while these people may continue to have money, they're maintaining being infested with spiritual demons and spiritual blindness. While these people may maintain a marriage for 10, 15, 30, 40 years, they're also maintaining demons and spiritual blindness and paralyzation. While these people may have a better career than you, or maybe been working longer than you, or maybe have more status than you, or 20 more years on you, that's great. They're still battling and suffering under these spiritual demons, the spiritual blindness, and the spiritual paralyzation. So they need to focus a little bit more on themselves and where they're at inside. Just like the religious spirits should have focused a little bit more on the fact that they didn't believe in Jesus, God's Son, when we all know that it was what it was. And so instead of focusing on Jesus and who he really was, and what does this mean and what does that mean, and analyzing and interpreting everything instead of taking it for what it was, they're the ones that should have focused a little bit more on themselves and their walk with the Lord and where they're really at with their faith. So there's two lessons here. If you're the one that's caught judging others that really truly follow the Lord and are close to the Lord, and you're in no position to know if they are or not because you're not God, you should know if you're a self-proclaimed believer and you believe like you say you do and have the faith that you say you do, so much in fact that you can be superior to others that say that they do, then you should know that God can do anything. So therefore, why would you limit him like that and think that you would be able to overjudge his judgment or overrule his judgment, right? And to not judge books by their cover just because somebody says they're a believer and you're witnessing some sort of trial for them, whether it's an internal struggle, an external struggle, a physical struggle, a mental struggle, a financial struggle, an emotional struggle, that does not mean that they aren't who they say they are, that they're false, they're getting back what they gave because they, like Jesus, proclaimed that they walked with Jesus, but they didn't. Jesus proclaimed he walked with the God, but he didn't. It's none of that. You're wrong. You have a religious spirit on you, and the Lord is encouraging you to go repent and have the faith that that person you're judging has, and that woman with the blood disorder and that blind man had, to go and seek out the Lord from an internal place as opposed to an external place. And maybe you too will receive the healing that those in those unfortunate positions received, right? And then vice versa on the flip side, if you're one of the ones that you do walk closely with Jesus and the Lord, and you are who you say you are genuine, real, and authentic, and God and Jesus recognize you as one of theirs, and you're in close relationship with them, just because you go through trials and difficulties doesn't mean that you're not saved and you're not a believer and you're not one of the Lord's sheep. And he'll come back for you if you're lost every time, because he leaves the 99 for the one. And you know, that you can always still receive your healing. And that just remember that in Jesus's ministry, when he was healing people, he was healing those that were sick and in less fortunate positions than those who were well off and in fortunate positions. And again, the proof is there in the pudding in the scriptures if you read them for yourself throughout Mark, Luke, and John. So I hope this blesses who it blesses. I hope it finds you well. I hope it makes sense. I hope it finds who it needs to find. Take care and God bless.